Hello and welcome to Good Morning Transfers. Bayern Munich are not giving up on their pursuit of Harry Kane. The latest on the Tottenham striker's future is coming up. Romeo Lavia is a wanted man, but it may cost £50 million to buy the midfielder from Southampton. Could Liverpool be his next club? Mauricio Pochettino wants a new midfielder, and he's told us the club are working on bringing one in. We'll hear from the Chelsea boss this hour. West Ham have a list of players that they're targeting, with Manchester United's Scott McTominay on that list. A very good morning to you at home and those watching on the Sky Sports News Premier League YouTube channel. We've got Nabeed Haroon, Sam Abaseki and James Savundra on the panel today. And we're going to start with Harry Kane, because Bayern Munich are increasingly confident they can sign him from Tottenham this summer. They believe Kane will become a Bayern player if the two clubs can agree a fee. That's something they haven't been able to do yet, which obviously is key. But Sam, how important is this for everyone that it's sorted out sooner rather than later?
I think it's really important. You know, I was talking to Nabeed off air that this is a player that's given his all to Spurs. You know, he's scored so many goals, he's their top goal scorer, and it's clear that he's looking for his next challenge. And, you know, when you have a new manager come in like Postecoglou, who his last two jobs were rebuilds, and he said that he thrived in those type of environments, I think it would be perfect sense for, you know, them to lose Kane in this window. They've still got players that they can build around in terms of Richarlison, who didn't have the greatest start. It felt like he was struggling to find his place in the squad. They've signed Maddison. They've got a few midfielders that are coming back from loan as well. So I think they've got a squad that you can build around. And I think if this is just over their head for the whole window, it's just going to turn into something really longer than it needs to.
Yeah, and Bayern Munich are normally quite good at getting their business done as well. But Sky in Germany's Florian Plettenberg, he's reporting that Bayern chief executive Jan Christian Driesen and the technical director Marco Nepper want to meet the Tottenham chairman Daniel Levy this week, preferably face-to-face, which, if that does happen, things could start moving a little bit quicker. But Nabeed, let's start with some positivity here. What is the best-case scenario for Tottenham?
Well, I don't think Spurs fans will want to lose Harry Kane, but I think you either have the choice of losing him next season for free, and I don't think Spurs are the sort of club that if they lose Harry Kane for free, they can still go out and spend a lot of money. I think we were just sort of saying off air there that if, you know, when they lost Bale, they replaced him with 5 or 6 players, and actually only 1 or 2 of those actually worked out. But in this case, I think you lose Kane for 100 million. Hopefully, under Postecoglou, you can invest that pretty well. I think he's got a very good idea of what he wants that team to look like. And then hopefully for Spurs fans, they end up in a situation where, although they may lose their best player, they may replace him with players that can actually contribute to the picture a bit better. And
they've got still top-class players. You know, I mentioned Ndombele, Basuma, Maddison. You know, was one of the best creators in the Premier League last season. So they've got a core of players that, you know, Postecoglou with his attacking football, it would really work. And I think it would just make a lot of sense for them to look at that core and say, you know what, let's do something. They don't have European football as well, so they'll have less competitions to play in. So I think it's leaning towards that being the best case.
You see, in my mind, I think that the best case scenario would be, first of all, straight away, he signs a new contract now, OK? There's no signs of that happening at the moment. But if they start the season, have a great start, and it looks like they might be certainly top 4 contenders, maybe even better than that, Harry Kane goes, you know what, I will sign a new contract. Is that overly optimistic from a Tottenham fan's point of view?
I think, well, you're not a Tottenham fan, so it's overly optimistic on their behalf. I think, you know, like, I do really believe that Harry Kane has to be sat there in his own position now and say, I don't think I'll win a title at Tottenham. I don't know if I'll win the Champions League, and I really want to win a trophy. And I've maybe got 3 to 5 years to do that. If he goes to Bayern, he's definitely going to be competing for the Champions League, because they always do. And he will definitely get his hands on a Bundesliga title. So the trade-off in that sense, yes, Spurs could have a really good start to the season. What does really good look like? Is that a title charge? Because Kane wants to win the title. I think that we all know for sure.
OK, well, Tottenham fans, let us know what you think your best case and worst case scenario is here for Harry Kane. It's hashtag Transfer Talk on Twitter or X. Not sure if it's still called tweeting now that it's called X, but either way, You know what I mean? Get in touch, #transfer talk. James, so talk about best case scenarios there, some positives. Afraid you're going to have to give us some negatives. What's the worst case scenario for Tottenham?
Well, I think the worst case scenario would be Harry Kane leave for free and join a Premier League rival next summer. The worst case scenario would be Harry Kane join a Premier League rival this summer, because at least Spurs would get some money for him. And that is why the conversations and dialogue is there with Bayern Munich at the moment. If Daniel Levy simply has to sell him this summer, then he'd much prefer doing it to a foreign club than somebody who is competing against Spurs this season. It'll be awful for Spurs fans to be playing a side who have Harry Kane in them, in that side. So that is why those conversations continue at the moment. And if there is an ultimatum that Joe Lewis has given Daniel Levy about a case of Harry Kane either needs to sign a contract or we sell him this summer, at this moment in time, as you guys have been saying, it really doesn't seem that Harry Kane is close to signing a new contract. I think every avenue he's keeping open at the moment, but signing a contract isn't that high up the agenda at the moment, because why would it be when you've got the potential to move to any club you want next summer? But then the one silver lining of that worst case scenario would be, what if Harry Kane helps Spurs achieve Champions League football and they qualify in the top 4, and all the riches that comes with that, the boost in commercial and sponsorship opportunities. And whilst it would be a disaster for him to leave for free, at least he'd leave Spurs in a better position, which they find themselves in at the moment, not playing in Europe, which hasn't happened in more than 10 years.
I don't know if...
You two both smiled and shook your head.
I don't know if swapping out 100 million for Champions League football, that's essentially the trade-off here.
It'd be a tiny silver lining.
Yeah,
the smallest of silver linings.
I think Spurs fans will 100% appreciate what you're trying to do for them there. But I think 100 million as a swap deal for Champions League football, I don't know many football fans who would take that trade-off, especially knowing how difficult Champions League football is to achieve at the moment in the Premier League. With how Liverpool were last season, they will improve, Chelsea will improve, and then there's always new contenders as well. So I think it will be tricky.
Yeah, and just losing Kane for free would just be the worst case scenario. And I think Postecoglou is already getting so many questions in his press conferences. He's a new manager. He doesn't need this attention. Let him have a new setup to work with. Obviously, losing Kane wouldn't be great, but the questions you can already tell is getting to him.
Yeah. What an awful start to the season it's been for Ange Postecoglou. Only started work in July. They've got this pre-season tour. They've been in Australia, Thailand, Singapore. The only meaningful opposition they're going to play has been West Ham, and that was under strength side. That's taken on the third best side in the Singaporean Premier League today.
Because they had the game called off, didn't they?
Yeah, they had the game called off against Leicester because of the monsoon. They were due to play Roma on Wednesday, or today. That was cancelled. The captain could be on his way out. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg potentially on his way out as well, so he needs to find a new captain. It's Harry Kane's situation as well, whilst trying to get this team playing a completely different style of football than they did under Antonio Conte and Jose Mourinho. Very little time on the training pitch because of the weather that there's been. Very little time playing meaningful opposition to try and get them sorted for the new season. So it's a difficult situation. I don't think a manager should really be put in the position Ange Postecoglou has been, but because you're dealing with something like Harry Kane, Spurs have been so reluctant to set a deadline for him when it comes to either sign or be signed by someone else.
Yes, sorry, Tottenham fans. I was trying to bring you some positivity there, and these tweets coming in haven't helped either. Because Stephen says that actually the worst case scenario is that Kane sees out his contract. Tottenham don't get Champions League football, and then he goes to Arsenal on a free for the end of the season.
Yeah,
all right, so Stephen, I don't know who you support, Stephen, but you're definitely riling the Tottenham fans right now. And Ian actually just says they need to sell him now because they need to get the money in for him now, rather than losing for free at the end of the season. OK, so that's Tottenham. Let's get on to Liverpool now and their search for a new midfielder. They've had a bid worth £40 million rejected by Southampton for Romeo Lavia. And we're told that Southampton would want more like 50 million than 40. And one source has told us that Chelsea are also interested. They're keeping an eye on the situation. So, midfield at Liverpool, Nabeed, why would Lavia fit the bill?
I mean, I'm actually quite split on this because I think Lavia is an outstanding footballer, especially for his age, 19 years of age. He's only going to get better. And his understanding of the game is only going to improve. I think what you see from him is what you get. He's sensational in possession. I think actually he's better suited as a box-to-box midfielder. Because when you look at someone like Fabinho, he's a traditional 6. He sits in front of the centre-backs. He tries to sweep up possession. I think his understanding of space is sort of a lot better than what Lavia's is. But again, Lavia could be one of these players that Klopp brings in and says, you're going to be the sixth long term, learn how to play the position better, because he's got the technical qualities to play that position better than Fabinho, actually. But at this moment in time, in that midfield three, Lavia, McAllister and Szoboszlai, I don't know who's doing what in that midfield, because someone needs to sit in. It'll be great fun to watch, and it's a little bit of a throwback to what maybe an earlier Klopp side looked like. But I think when you have an opportunity to sign a player for this sort of price, you simply have to jump on it, I think.
Yeah, Southampton, by the way, we're in pre-season action last night against Bournemouth, and Lavia played in that one. After the game, this is what his new boss at Southampton, Russell Martin, had to say about his future.
The latest is, I think it's been very public. I think that's where it's at. I'll speak to Jason after the game to see if anything's changed, Jason Wilcox, and not fobbing it off on him. But it's not I don't control that area. My job is to coach the players on the pitch. And Romeo played 45 minutes tonight. It was good for him. It was good for us, because he may still be here. I don't know. He might not.
Do you think he'll be at the club by the end of the transfer window?
Football often defies logic, and as a manager here, I have to be prepared for everything, really. So we'll have to wait and see.
So we understand that Southampton are looking more like £50 million. Of course, Southampton now in the Championship. So we had a look at the biggest transfer fees received by Championship clubs over the years. And you can see at the top there, Nathan Ake for £41 million after Bournemouth got relegated. James Maddison's gone for 40, Harvey Barnes 39. So those two this summer, both going out of Leicester. Ollie Watkins there for 33. Moussa Sissoko, remember that when he went to Tottenham when Newcastle went down under Rafael Benitez for 30 million. Also João Pedro, 30 million on his way to Brighton. And Jude Bellingham went for 25 to Borussia Dortmund. So this would actually be the highest transfer fee recouped by a Championship club of all time if Southampton do get the £50 million that they want. So we mentioned a different midfield for Liverpool next season, Sam. We know that they're going to need to replace Jordan Henderson, but maybe even Fabinho as well.
Yeah, he's been linked with a move away from Liverpool. Obviously, there's not been any confirmation on that, but I think this leaves them in an interesting spot, because I think when they went into the transfer market, they had the idea of Fabinho starting next season because of the way he ended last season. He didn't start the greatest, but I think he got into some sort of form. And if you do sign a Lavia and then let go of a Fabinho, you're then going to have to go into the market to get number 6, because, like Nubaid said, they don't have a traditional 6. They have been playing with Trent in midfield during the pre-season, but at the same time, is he going to do the same job that Fabinho done? Has he got the intelligence to do that for the whole season? He's a great player, and I'm sure he'll be able to, warm into that position. But at the same time, this is a Liverpool side that want to challenge for the title again, and I think they will struggle if they don't have a straight 6 in their team.
So Fabinho would have to be replaced, is what you're saying. But James, yeah, because Henderson, Fabinho, question marks against them at the moment.
Yeah, Henderson has said his goodbye to his Liverpool teammates on the verge of this move to Al Ettifaq, fee worth around £13 million. We expect that to be confirmed by the end of this week, and that comes after Henderson spoke to Jurgen Klopp and asked him about what his role would be moving forward in this team. And then Fabinho, subject of a package worth around £40 million from Al Ittihad, and The Athletic have reported that the transfer is in jeopardy, but all parties do remain committed in getting the deal done. And then also, Thiago could potentially be on the way out. There is interest from Saudi, nothing concrete at the moment. And it does mean that Liverpool are on the verge of a huge change when it comes to their midfield this summer. And we can see some of the stats when it comes to their playing time last season and, of course, overall in the Premier League. And you see it there, filling the minutes that have going to be going out this side from Jordan Henderson and Fabinho is going to be difficult to fill. Quite remarkable. Naby Keita, 4 years at Liverpool, only managed 84 appearances. One example that they could do to try and make things happen, as Sam was saying, is to fit in Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain playing in defensive midfield. He's played there in pre-season. He played there towards the end of last year as well. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, another player not on that list, who's left. Alexis McAllister will certainly help with that. And Dominic Szoboszlai, creative attacking player who prefers playing on the flanks. I'm not sure he'd be able to play in a 2, but he probably would fit into a 3. But as Nubaid was saying there, it potentially is a big risk if you're going in as a 3 of McAllister, Szoboszlai, and then somebody like Lavia. So You would think with all these departures, despite the fact you do have the likes of Harvey Elliott and Curtis Jones, Liverpool, surely it feels necessary that they go back into the market and find that number 6. Whether or not Lavia is the right man at this moment in time, we wait to see. But when you consider all of the experience that's going out of this team, surely they need another player.
Right, we've got some breaking transfer news. It comes from Scotland, and Mike Nawrocki has become the latest addition to Brendan Rodgers' Celtic squad. He's a centre-back, by the way. He's joined. It's a 5-year deal from Legia Warsaw. Now, this is subject to international clearance. He's 22 years old. He has played for Poland under 21s. He helped Legia Warsaw win the Polish Cup last season. Celtic fans will be wondering how much he's cost. It's £4.3 million. So a new centre-back for Celtic. That is Mike Nawrocki. Now next, we're talking Chelsea. Will Mauricio Pochettino sign a new midfielder? Find out what he's had to say in a few minutes.
Sky Sports News, sponsored by Shaw Non-Stop Protection.
It's a new era for Chelsea under head coach Mauricio Pochettino. During his short spell so far, he's already overseen a number of incomings and outgoings. He's confirmed he wants to sign one more midfielder, even if Conor Gallagher stays at the club. Chelsea have rejected a £40 million offer from West Ham for the England international.
Conor is in our plan. I was talking with him the first day that he arrived. That is in our plan. And then in football, things can happen. We cannot manage, but at the moment, I think I am happy with him, with his performance. Still 2-year contract, and nothing to say.
Just in that midfield area, do you have a number in your head of how many more midfielders you need? Could you start the season with just one more new midfielder, or is that not enough?
Well, depend of the situation of different player. I think at least we need one more. And we are working on that. But I see it depends of what is happening in the next few weeks. We will decide and we will take a decision.
Well, joining us now to chat Chelsea is Maiwa Quadri. Maiwa, great to see you. Welcome to Good Morning Transfers. And Pochettino there saying that they need one more midfielder. Who should that be?
It's a tricky one. Morning. Of course, we've been linked with Caicedo very, very heavily, but the price is the price, and it doesn't seem like Brighton will be budging. For me personally, we need experience, which Poch said. I would be looking at Verratti. I think ultimately, if you've lost a World Cup winner, a Euros winner, and a multiple Champions League winner from your squad, you need experience. He's someone who has injuries over the years, but last season, I think he played about 29 games in the league. He is someone that could come in and play straight away. And of course, has played for Poch before.
And I'm sure that he would cost a lot of money, but in fairness, Chelsea certainly haven't been afraid to spend big since the new owners came in last summer.
100%, and I think that's part of the issue. When we're looking at targets, I think other club owners are looking around and saying, well, you spent a lot of money before, you spent a lot of money in midfield before, so why not spend a lot of money again? So whoever we go after, we're going to be charged a premium, but Poch has said what he needs for the team. And I think he's right. We do need experience in the midfield. We probably have one of the youngest squads in the league right now after all the sales. So let's see who we bring in.
Well, and the one that we know that Chelsea are interested in is Moise Caicedo from Brighton. What would he offer?
He's just an amazing player. It's very rare to get someone that defensively is so great, but going forward offers you so much. I think if you look around Europe, he's one of the best at not only regaining possession, but leading attacks that lead to goals. And I think ultimately, if you look at his role models, he says that he looks at people like Kane and Pogba. Those are two people that combined won a World Cup. He has both of their games in one player. And he's only 21. Of course, he's done well in the Premier League. You can see him growing into a really, really fantastic player. It's the type of signing that you sign him now and he serves you for a really long time.
So that's in central midfield that we've been talking about. What other areas do you think, if any, Chelsea need?
Well, we've signed a lot of players, Tom, in the recent windows. But I think the one that a lot of Chelsea fans would say is the goalkeeper. You've seen what our rivals United have done recently. They've had a long servant who's won multiple players of the season. But they've said, you know what, we can go a level better. And I think it's an area that we can definitely address. We can definitely improve. It is the one that I'll probably say we need to look into. OK, so Romelu Lukaku's future. We talk about this one a lot. What would you be thinking as a Chelsea fan? Let's give him one more chance. Let's start him, see how he does. Or is it, by the way, Sam Obasaki is shaking his head to that one, Maiwa. Or is it time for him to just go for good? Sam's shaking his head. I'm not shaking my head as much, but I think for Rom, it's probably time for a new challenge. I think the issue with Rom is he needs to be in a place where it's a fresh start. He's not a bad player at all. He's proven that he can score goals. But the issue with Rom is once he has these difficulties, it's very difficult to bounce back from. It would probably be the fourth or fifth time he's coming back to the club. To expect him to come in and then just be the person that we need, I think is too much of an ask now. I'd rather we cut our losses and look elsewhere.
And in terms of outgoings, is there any other areas where you think you are very well stocked and could do with losing a few?
Well, this is the issue. I think at the moment, a lot of Chelsea fans are wondering what the strategy is. a lot of our potential homegrown players have been linked with moves away. A lot of the Cobham prospects have been linked with moves away, which is a bit concerning because as a club, you want your homegrown talent and your academy talent to come through. I think at the moment, our squad is actually really thin. So rather than looking at who we're getting out of the window, I think it's just about getting 1 or 2 more experienced players. Really young squad, which is great. But if you look at that squad, you'd probably only say Thiago Silva and Raheem Sterling are the senior pros who are seasoned and seen everything. Of course, Reece James has seen a lot in his career. Ben Chilwell has seen a lot. But those 2 are really standout. So I think we get 1 more senior player and Poch starts to feel a little bit more comfortable about the season.
Well, talking of well-stocked, this transfer team is well-stocked with Chelsea fans. And in terms of where they're going to finish this season, they all think they're going to run away with it and win the title. What do you think?
I mean, to go from when we were this season to win the title, boy, I mean, it's been a while since we've seen something like that. I think ultimately all Chelsea fans have high standards. Like, saying that we're not going to compete for the league is almost anti-Chelsea. That's what we typically go for. But I think the safe step to say is that we need to be secure in top 4. We need to be back in the Champions League. And Pochettino, I mean, of course, he did win stuff at PSG, but compared to other managers, it wasn't really great like that. So for him, he has to be looking at challenging domestically and try and win one of those cups too. But I think that's a safe step to get back to where we want to be in general. Top 4 and win a cup.
Great to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, Sam, you enjoyed that one, didn't you?
I did.
Pochettino's priority, it does sound like it is a midfielder. Is that the only priority? Is that what should be a sole focus at the moment in terms of strengthening the squad?
I think so. I think, like Mauro said, we've got a thin squad. So in terms of what his priority now would be is to, get the best out of the current squad that he has, get them to gel. He's only been there for a few weeks. We've seen a few pre-season games where we've seen the intensity that was missing last season. We've seen goals that were missing last season as well. So I think he's on the right track. One of the biggest thing I'm intrigued about is when he says he needs experience in midfield, and obviously we're linked with Caicedo, who's only played a season and a half in the Premier League, and for me, I think that's enough experience if you've seen the quality that he has for a team like Brighton. But elsewhere, I know Mayo mentioned Verratti, but he's 30 years old, injury record. He would be good experience, but would it be worth a punt to, add that to the team? So it's going to be interesting to see the midfielders that Chelsea are linked with. I know that they're probably keen on getting the Caicedo deal over the line before they move on to those other targets. But yes, I'm still trying to see on the market what type of player Chelsea could go in for.
The struggle actually is just availability. Because after Caicedo, if you're looking for someone who's willing to be a rotation player, then some people might say you've got Conor Gallagher in there. But you don't actually really want Conor Gallagher. So you're kind of like, let's let go of the rotation midfielder. Let's bring in a top midfielder, find another rotation midfielder. I feel like the cycle could end up going round and round.
Yeah, well, the Chelsea boss, Mauricio Pochettino, has obviously also addressed the situation about the links report, the reports linking the club with Kylian Mbappe.
Conor is in our plan. I was talking with him the first day that he arrived. That is in our plan. And then in football, things can happen. We cannot manage.
Apologies. He was talking about Conor Gallagher there, OK, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But he was talking about Kylian Mbappe as well, because Chelsea are one of the clubs that we understand, or PSG are telling us, are interested in the French forward.
Would you like to see him playing for Chelsea?
I think in our past we work in Paris Saint-Germain, and with Kylian, I think I need to be conscious that I cannot talk, because everything that you talk maybe is too much noise. I think it's a situation very delicate, and it's a situation that they need to fix in Paris with Kylian with Paris Saint-Germain. And yes, but from our side, nothing to say. I think we are working on our reality. Our reality is different, and of course, they for sure they have another reality. And from my side, nothing to say. Only to support them. Hope that find the best solution for both sides.
Much more to come as West Ham look to add to their midfield and defence, plus news of a potential incoming at Manchester United. West Ham have held initial talks with Manchester United over the signings of Harry Maguire and Scott McTominay. Early suggestions indicate a gap in valuations for both players. We're told that Manchester United think Maguire and McTominay, they see them as top players and very important members of the squad. But Sam, how surprised would you be if Maguire is still a Manchester United player come September?
I think I'll be really surprised, and I think some United fans will be surprised as well, mainly because, you know, he hasn't really had the best period in the last few years. He was obviously stripped of captaincy. Fernandes is now captain. He's only played 16 times last year, 8 times off the bench. And I think he just it hasn't really worked out for him. You know, his first season at Manchester United, he was coming into his own, and then a few things happened around the team, not necessarily his fault, but since then I think he's just fallen from the standard that you'd expect from a Manchester United centre-back. And last season, you saw the way they started, and then when he left the team, they went on a 5-game winning streak, and he never really found his way back into the team. And when he did play in the Europa League games and other Premier League games, he just never looked comfortable. I think United fans have always said they don't feel as comfortable as they feel when Martinez and Varane or even Shaw is playing at centre-back. So I think a move away would be the best thing possible for him, especially when the Euros is next year. Southgate has trusted him at times where people have been sceptical and wondered why. And I think for him, it's best for him to just go to a team that wants him, still plays out the back like Manchester United, but trusts in him and you know, somewhere that he can make his home again.
That's quite a crucial point, actually, about England, not really been discussed as much. Gareth Southgate has put so much trust in him when he's not been featuring barely at all in crucial Premier League matches for Manchester United. If he really wants to be part of that Euro squad next summer, I don't think he can really have a season like he has had at Manchester United this season. You mentioned there, when Varane and Martinez was injured, it was Luke Shaw who was called in to play centre-back. Victor Lindelof got a number of opportunities as well. And all the signs pointing towards Harry Maguire not being the type of player that Erik ten Hag needs. I think Erik ten Hag has a huge amount of respect for him, both as a man and as a player. But for whatever reason, he doesn't fit into what Erik ten Hag wants from his centre-backs. We've seen they brought in Andre Onana to try and help build United's attacks from deep. And I think defensively and from a forward point of view with the ball at his feet, Maguire's just not shown what he has done in that last season at Leicester. And as you mentioned as well, he got to a really good start at United. But things, for whatever reason, have just fallen away. Sometimes certain things aren't the right fit. And I think the right fit for Maguire now is probably to find somewhere where he's going to be a really important player, because at the moment he's going to be a fringe player this season at Man United.
I actually think in possession he's better than he's shown, because when he plays for England, I think he's pretty decent on the ball.
Different pace though.
Yeah, but then yeah, true. But then I also just think he's in a situation at Manchester United where anything he does is scrutinised just a little too much, in my opinion. And so it's almost like he needs a reset to go somewhere else where if they can almost like re-identify Maguire with a new club, with a new feeling. Because at the moment at Manchester United, he gives the ball away once in a game, and I think people turn on him and go, we've just conceded a goal 35 passes later because Maguire gave it away. I just think a reset for him is probably handy.
If he does go, whoever gets him will be getting a quality player, no doubt. So you'd be surprised if Maguire is still a Manchester United player come September. Would it be less of a surprise if McTominay is still in that red shirt?
With McTominay, I think the feeling is that he's actually not played that much football for Manchester United, whereas in actual fact, he's played over 20 games for the last 4 seasons. And for what Ten Hag wants to execute in terms of having the squad, and bear in mind they'll want to compete in Europe again. And as you can see, last season he played 24 games, and I think, you know, like duels 196, tackle success rate 59%. He's not a bad footballer, and I think
24 out of 38 league games is not bad at all.
That's a good squad player.
A squad as good as theirs.
And I think the issue United might have is if Casemiro is suspended, Eriksen, you know, there was a lot of people at the end of last season saying he's not fit enough to play every single game of the season. And then you've got Fred, who's been linked with a move away. If you end up losing McTominay, they're in the same situation as Chelsea, where you've just lost a squad player. And these players are very handy because you don't know what's going to happen during the season.
Well, West Ham want Maguire and they want McTominay. They've also held positive talks with Southampton over the signing of midfielder James Ward-Prowse. One source has told us an agreement is edging closer. Personal terms not expected to be a problem. This is what the Southampton manager Russell Martin had to say about his future.
Well, he's been in the Premier League for the last 11 years with the club. He's played for England. He has an incredible record of goals, assists and games, very robust. So I'm pretty sure if you asked him the question, would he want to be in the Premier League? Yes. But does he have a huge affinity and love and care for this club? Yes. So he'll be ready to play if he's still here. I've got no doubt about that. And as I said, we've been really impressed with him. So I think all you can ask is, whilst they're here, they give everything, and he's done that. And I couldn't give you a percentage chance of what's going to happen because I really haven't got a clue. So we'll have to wait and see.
James, how good a signing would Ward-Prowse be for West Ham?
Well, he's a talisman, isn't he? He doesn't miss a minute, and it's important to state he didn't play last night in that friendly, a precautionary measure because he picked up a knee injury at the weekend. But Russell Martin is planning on having him part of their squad on Saturday, and their championship campaign gets underway next Friday, so they'll be desperate to get some clarity on what happens with their captain. But I think when you look at some of his stats and look at what he did last season, he did not miss a single minute, and he tends to top the stats when it comes to Southampton for goals, assists, chances created. He can do pretty much everything. Tackles, intercepts, dribbling, passing, crossing. We know how deadly he can be from direct free kicks and corners and other set pieces. So he scores goals. Whether or not he fits into the exact same mould as Declan Rice when it comes to his playing ability, that's very different. But when it comes to his leadership ability, the ability to hold the team together and be that linchpin and somebody that people can turn to, he certainly has that. And I think his character and all the references you hear about his character, he's been sensational because he has been open to a move for a long period of time, but also he's never pushed for a move. He's always been ultimately professional, and last season you just wonder how he was feeling it as things fell apart, as the managers came in and out Southampton, but he was always there. He always fronted up, spoke to the media. I think if West Ham do sign him, I think there's a lot of work still to be done on this transfer. They're getting not only a brilliant player, but a brilliant character as well. It could be, from a personality point of view, just the sort of person they need to fill the void that's been left from Rice as both a player and also as a character.
Well, West Ham also not giving up on signing the Chelsea midfielder Conor Gallagher. They had a bid worth £40 million rejected, but talks are ongoing between the clubs. It's thought if a deal can be struck, the final decision will rest with Gallagher himself. So Sam, Gallagher to West Ham, what would West Ham be getting and what would Chelsea be losing?
I think it would be a great signing for West Ham, but I think also Chelsea fans are quite 50-50 on this as well because they see the quality that he has. I think when Pochettino was linked with the job and now that he's in, everyone thought that Gallagher would be the perfect midfielder for Pochettino. He presses well, he's got an eye for goal, and he's a great character to have in the squad, and also he's very young. And I think with all of those qualities, it seemed like it made sense. He started in both of the pre-season games. He scored in both of them as well. But also the price and the fee that we're seeing for him that West Ham are trying to pay. I think, Chelsea, we've seen they've been quite cutthroat with some of the players that they've sold, regardless of if they come through Cobham or how the fans feel about them. So I think it will be a great signing for West Ham, but for Chelsea, we spoke about the absence in midfield and the type of midfielders that they need. Maybe they're looking for a different profile and want to put that funds elsewhere. But I think it would be one of those signings that you look at a few years later and say that maybe they should have kept him.
Well, loads to talk about at West Ham, but positive talks continue between Nottingham Forest and Manchester United over the signing of goalkeeper Dean Henderson. Forest are discussing a loan with an obligation to buy. Personal terms not expected to be an issue. But James, how surprised are you that Henderson is actually available?
Well, I think in an ideal world, Manchester United would love to have him as a number two, somebody who could play in cup competitions. But Dean Henderson has made it quite clear over the last 18 months or so that he wants to be playing first-team football. He's somebody who has spoken openly about his desire to be the England number one, which he simply wouldn't be able to be as a number two at Manchester United. And considering the pursuit that United have had of Andre Onana and how much they wanted him, he's very clearly going to be the number one. I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of competition. So it looks like Tom Heaton at this moment in time will be that number two. And I think Henderson has been frustrated with what has happened at Manchester United over the last few years. I think he feels that there was some broken promises made by the former manager, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He thought that he would be given the number one jersey or at least some more playing time. Unfortunately for him, he picked up COVID at the wrong point in time at the beginning of the season before last. De Gea got the jersey and we saw, despite the fact he couldn't really play with the ball at his feet, the number of clean sheets that De Gea has kept over the last couple of seasons meant that Henderson didn't have an opportunity the season before last. Things seemed to work out well at Nottingham Forest until he got that injury. He's got immense potential. He believes in himself so much. I think now he feels like, despite the fact he'd be departing a huge club like Manchester United, at this moment in time he needs to be playing football, and the fit really worked with Nottingham Forest until he got that injury. I think with United looking to bring in money, if they can secure a really good fee for Dean Henderson, then it makes sense for all three parties. Nottingham Forest are getting a brilliant goalkeeper. Dean Henderson is getting the chance to push his England credentials. And Man United are getting a fee which helps them maybe push towards some of their other transfer targets.
Speaking of which, they are expected to formalise their interest in Atalanta striker Rasmus Højlund in the coming days. We've been keeping up to date with this one over the past few weeks, but positive talks did continue over the weekend. We're just waiting for an update on that. Right, next we'll hear from the Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta, and there's news from Tottenham as Davinson Sanchez looks like he is leaving the club. To discuss his move, a warning of flash photography in the following images.
There's only been a few new faces in the Heart of Midlothian squad, but one he's getting his photos taken now here at the Heart of Midlothian Media Day. As you can see, it's a man who they have signed from Peterborough. It's Frankie Kent, and we'll bring him over here actually, and we'll get a word once he's completed all his photos. There we go, that's great. Frankie, we'll take you over here. Thanks very much for joining us. Just tell us about this move to Heart of Midlothian and what it was that made you want to come to Edinburgh.
Just a new challenge, really. Something really exciting for me to try and experience. Been in English football my whole career, so coming up here and trying something new and something different and playing for this massive club is something I've wanted to do.
What can the Hearts fans expect from you?
Hard working. I give 100% every game. Try to anyway. Talking loud. Try and lead from the back and yeah, build attacks as well. But obviously I'm a defender, so try and do that first.
And trying to help out in terms of defending set pieces. I know at times Hearts struggled with that last season. Is that something that will be key to your game?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Anything that the manager and the staff want me to do, I'll try and do as best of my ability. But yeah, try and help with that and just try and enforce my game on it.
Can you be a threat in the opposition's box as well? Will you get amongst the goals?
I try to be. Yeah. I should probably have more than what I've got, but yeah, I'll definitely try and get some goals to the tally.
Great move to come to Hearts, but I have to ask, and sorry to bring it up again, how tough a summer has it been given the last game you played for Peterborough and what happened in that playoff?
Yeah, it was tough. It took a long time to get over. Difficult one to sort of process because of obviously how both games went. But it's football, you have to move on quick. And yeah, just ready for this new challenge.
You have European football to look forward to. How big a factor was that?
Yeah, huge. I think this was probably one of the main things that that excited me and brought me here was the opportunity to do that. So getting into that will be very exciting.
Scottish football itself, how much are you looking forward to pitting your wits against some of the teams? We've got the big Edinburgh derby against Hibernian and obviously other big teams in there as well. What was it about Scotland that you wanted to come to?
Like I said before, just something new and exciting and a new challenge, something to test myself with. Playing against every team in this league is going to be tough and difficult, but knowing and speaking to a few boys that I know up here already, they said they loved it, so something that I'm proper excited to get into.
Well, thanks for your time. All the best with it. There we go. One of Heart of Midlothian's new signing. Plenty more to come here from the Hearts Training Centre at Oriam, and we'll speak to the manager shortly as well.
Yeah, very good centre-back Frankie Kent. Now to Arsenal, and manager Mikel Arteta has been discussing the future of left-back Kieran Tierney. Let's listen to what he's had to say.
It is obviously in our plans, and as you said, he came out really well. It's not the first time. Every time he's played in pre-season, he's been really good, and this is what we want: create competition in the team, raise the level of each individual, and that's going to be a huge benefit for the team to get to another level.
So sounds like Arteta wants Tierney to stay, but he won't rule out more signings, but it would likely depend on players leaving. A right-sided forward is one of the positions Arsenal have been wanting to strengthen for a while, and we're told not to rule out another central midfielder if there is a departure in that area. So Nabeed, on that right-sided forward, why do they need one?
Well, I think they want to compete across multiple competitions. They're back in the Champions League, which will be a big one for Arteta and Arsenal. I think Saka's played a lot of football over the last 2 or 3 seasons. He completed 35 of 38 90s in the Premier League last season. And then, as you saw towards the end of the last couple of months, his form sort of declined a little bit. That might have been fatigue. It might have just been the pressure of a Premier League title race. But ultimately, I think when you're in a title race and you want to be in the Champions League and you want to compete in the FA Cup and you want to compete in the Carabao Cup, you cannot ask Saka to play every single minute of every single game. Because also you've got to think of how young he is. He's the future of Arsenal Football Club, and they want to keep him there for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years playing at the peak of his powers. They've got Reece Nelson as a potential backup who can play off the right and the left. I just think it makes a lot of sense to add another one in there just to give themselves more options.
Yeah, and these days it's not really signing a right or left sided. They play on both sides regardless of what their stronger foot is. But James, in terms of central midfielder, they might buy one. If they lose one, do they need one anyway?
I'm not sure they do, but if you speak to some Arsenal fans who watched the game at the weekend against Manchester United, beaten 2-0, and that was the first game that Rice and Havertz started together, there were real question marks around the physicality of the midfield three, with Martin Ødegaard there as well. And Mikel Arteta has been asked about that overnight, and he laughed off suggestions saying, stay calm, Arsenal fans, it's just the first game and we have the ability to be physical. I think the question marks were around losing Granit Xhaka and all that he offers the team when it comes to physicality, presence on the pitch as well. But I think the fact that Thomas Partey is going to stay, and Arteta said that he's super important this season, played 40 games last year. When he was injured, Arsenal didn't quite look the same team, I didn't think. But heading into this transfer window, all the indications seem to be that he was willing to move elsewhere, interest from Europe and the Saudi Pro League. But from the sounds of things, he'll be staying. It does seem unlikely that at this stage Arsenal will let go of any of the midfielders. So they need to bring anyone in. And let's bear in mind, Emil Smith-Rowe barely featured last season. He was injured. He can play either on the wide or either flank, or he could play in the midfield as well. So I think that Arsenal are pretty well settled with their midfield. I think you always want one more, but then also you don't want players that don't have a role in the side. So I think they're OK.
Very quickly back to Tottenham. They've accepted a £12.8 million bid from Spartak Moscow for centre-back Davinson Sanchez. Tottenham boss Ange Postecoglou said Sanchez is exploring his options. Sanchez himself is thought to be reluctant about the potential move, but he has entered the final year of his Tottenham contract. Very quickly, Sam, why is Sanchez being allowed to leave?
Because he's been at the club, I was actually surprised at this, but he's been at the club since 2017 and he's never really found his position in the squad. You know, he's had a few situations where the fans haven't been really happy with his performances, and they've made it pretty clear as well. And with their starting lineup, he just doesn't seem to have a starting spot. So I think a move away is probably best.
So it looks like he could be on his way. Right, we are back for transfer talk in just over 2 hours' time. That's midday until 1 p.m. And the transfer show is back. 2 shows tonight, 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. So we've got through loads in that show, more to come throughout the day, but coming up on Sky Sports News, we've got an exclusive interview with Arsenal's club record signing, Declan Rice, that big move from West Ham, the England midfielder. Exclusive interview is coming.